SFJ 4x4 Studios presents
in my oversized four-wheel drive Jeep.
a Jeep podcast starring industry experts.
Pure Monosity.
What? Say that again.
With mad scientist Scott Brown,
Use my drill press as a sort of blade.
our host Neil Simpson,
If one light goes out, they all go out.
filled with shenanigans.
We are really professional with Jeeps.
This is I Speak Jeep.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com. My name is Neil of Simpson Family Jeeps.
Are you sure?
I am very sure this morning.
It is
And
very bright on this
It
side
is
of our
very
studio.
bright on Grandma's
I'm
couch.
glad I can bring it down over here.
It is very bright on Grandma's couch. For those of you who are listening at home, all three of you listening in your ear holes, Jeffrey and I are seated on Grandma's couch together in
Yes.
our limited edition spooky season hoodies, which I'll address here in a
My
second.
wife was rocking hers over the weekend, and somebody stopped her and was like, "Do you really like Halloween?" And she's like, "Maybe."
I mean,
Off the hoodie.
just having fun with it. Goodness. Why,
It's
what's wrong
such a
with
fun
people?
hoodie. I don't get.
I
It's
thought
just
it was
a
so
fun
funny.
hoodie.
They're just having that normal transaction
Yeah.
at a cash register, and they're like, "Do you really like Halloween?" And I was like,
I mean, I don't know. It's like asking somebody if they like Christmas. Yeah, like it's a holiday. I like. It's like it makes life a little brighter. Can we not just enjoy
"Yes."
life a little bit? Let people be people. Goodness,
And enjoy the orange.
and enjoy the orange, no doubt.
Yes.
So, well, let me cough right into
It's fine.
What are you doing over there?
it. Just came out. I couldn't help myself.
The
folks.
orange is just
The orange.
escaping.
The orange is the life essence of the pumpkin is escaping.
There's no pumpkin on the hoodie. Someone's a little salty about that. Just saying.
Jeffrey's salty. Jeffrey wanted a pumpkin, and we want folks that know at home that
A
Savage
pumpkin, a ghost, a bat. I don't care. Something.
something. Nope, Savage held the line,
Yes.
and
He
he said,
did.
"I've got the design, and people are loving it." So credit
Yeah.
to Savage for doing a good design.
Savage has
character.
heck of a poker face.
He does,
does.
because then we're like, we kind of give him a little affirmation. He's like, "Yeah, I'm really good at designing things." It's like, okay, shut up. You're cut off. You're
Yep.
cut off.
No more.
Oh, what did he say? He said, "Because Neil didn't design it at all." That's
Yeah.
what he said.
Yeah.
That's what he
Yeah.
said.
It was
as well.
great.
It was like a ball kick and affirmation at the same time.
Yes, that's exactly it.
It was
Oh.
great.
Oh my goodness! All right, folks, who are you guys?
Yeah. Who's the other guy in the orange hoodie?
So I'm Jeff Shermani,
Are you sure?
the producer.
The Italian Stallion.
And I am Scott Brown, the mad scientist. And today I was bolting on slave cylinder and master cylinder things.
Yeah, I'm glad he sprung on that. I think he's going to be
That was-
happier.
Yeah, you should
Uh,
always do a lot of good things with brakes and stopping stuff.
Yeah.
I'm amazed that brakes are one of those things mechanically that unfortunately
You
is
kinda-
all too often.
You just
well-
replace it all.
Well, it's you should, but I'm saying all too often it's like, oh, I can do that in my driveway at home.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I understand the DIY nature of it,
Yeah.
but there are little kind of idiosyncrasies of doing brakes well.
I will say it, and just kind of a two-clip thing. It is way different to change a part in an already functioning system and just ask that part to bring it up to the level of the rest of the system than starting with a fresh system and asking it to function. So, in my opinion, just building cars over the years, when you have everything new, everything's empty, everything's dry, and you're asking that system to then function, that's an act. That is a feat.
Interesting.
But if you just, my caliper went bad, yeah, you can do that in your driveway and you can be back on the road in minimal downtime because the rest of the system is functioning, it's happy, it's appropriate. When you are doing that kind of stuff, nah.
Well, and yeah, as far as rebuilding a brake system in its entirety, or
Yes.
if you're doing a custom build and you're building a new brake system, right? Even on hashtag not a restoration, that brake system does not belong on that Jeep.
Correct.
That's largely 80% or better a custom brake
And even
assembly.
then, it's still, a proven pedal ratio, a proven pedal to master situation, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. When me and my dad were doing stuff, you're taking aftermarket pedal assembly with some other master cylinder, with some other booster, and you're putting it in a sort of light location, and the seat, it might be different.
Yes.
You're proving everything.
Yeah, it's all start from scratch. The
And
piece that
we're going to go to the comments just because, one, there's a whole lot of comments feeding in, and two, because this one pops up, brakes just slow you down.
That's
Good
true.
job, Daddy Jeep.
yeah,
That was a dad joke.
that was a dad joke.
So, anyways, Justin is saying good morning, trying something new on my Monday, babysitting 2 little kids.
Oh, well, you got to get it done whichever
You're
way
doing
you
the
got
most
to do it.
important job out there.
That's absolutely the truth.
Darla's saying good morning, Jeeple.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good
Uh,
morning.
Daddy Jeep did say good morning. So
Yeah.
did Amy.
Good morning.
honey.
Justin said, I got a surprise for you 3. It's going to be mailed out this week. You have to
Ooh.
air it next week on the show.
Oh, excellent.
That
Can't
sounds
wait for it,
fun.
Justin. Yeah, it'll be awesome. There's the brakes just slow you down.
And then
Yep.
brakes lay down. And then we are appreciating our new oversized brakes.
As you should.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Joel there from 4 Jeeps Deep sharing that we just did
Yes.
a big brake upgrade on one of the Jeeps recently. And this is the last piece on my horse of doing DIY brakes because obviously we all started as DIYers and our show is intended to set our DIY community up for success.
Yes.
Right? One of those challenges, though, when doing brakes is this is our tidbit, so I cannot encourage you enough to take this home and put this as part of your practice because I certainly wasn't doing it prior to doing it professionally, is when you're doing brakes, say that caliper conversation, I used to use your standard screw style C-clamp.
Yep.
Right? Because that's what we all used.
Yes.
And then what we now
An
know
old
as
brake pad or
professionals.
a piece of wood and the C clamp.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
You're
What we
shoving it back.
you're just shoving it back. And what we now know as professionals is there's actually can be a internal thin line of rust or some type of debris inside that caliper piston itself. Debris. And you can actually use entirely too
The
much.
sad part is, I know
mechanical
you were picking on the
advantage.
word. I don't know if Scott was.
I just enjoy that word. Just, call it for what it is. It's just a fun word.
And you can actually use too much mechanical advantage of that simple machine of a screw style C clamp.
Yes.
And so we actually there are specific tools, but we can actually use a wide mouth vice grip.
Yes.
And there's
now
just
you can feel it.
now you can actually feel the compression of
Yes.
the fluid as it
Have
pushes
a moment,
back into
you and the
master.
caliper share a moment, and you can decide are you junk or not.
Yes, are you junk or not? And then
Yes.
obviously lubing up the pins, the guides, those types of things.
Yes.
Oftentimes, when people are DIYing at home,
They're not pulling apart the sleeves on the pins and
though the
putting more
devil
grease
is in the details, right?
Yes.
And that's the piece that we don't want to do the entirety of their projects.
Yes.
We can and we will, and we do want the bigger builds, and we do appreciate our customer base that has asked us to take these things on. But there's so many people who we can assist and help by setting up the DIYers to do things successfully, or just dabble and do a little portion so that is done really, really well,
Yep.
and then you can kind of design your suspension, or you can choose your steering, or whatever it is,
Yep.
And that's really the value of our approach to the automotive market.
I was literally talking to Jeff this morning. I have a couple ideas for future episodes, and it's simple things that, for immediate thing, you're like, oh, that's a simple thing.
Yes.
Why do we need to talk about that? But there's so much in that simple thing. So coming up, we're going to be talking. I think we should do one on brakes. We should talk about thermostats.
Yes.
Thermostats was a great one when he brought that
What
up.
does it do? How does it do it? Why does it do it? Is it different from your Willys to your JL?
I think that's really the challenge with you and I specifically over our friendship and
Yeah.
our approach. Like our circle around us will oftentimes be like, those guys like
Of
talk
course,
way
I
over
know
our
what
head.
a thermostat is. Yeah.
Right. We are assuming that these people are at the same just crazy level of interest that we are.
Yep.
And actually to the KISS method, which is why I always think about that, the KISS, keep it simple, silly, is the idea that we always have to kind of pull it back and be like, you know what? Let's not assume that they know what we're talking about. So, I
so
get
to
it.
make it easy for our listeners, so the way that you guys know whether or not you have to break it down more is just by looking at me. And if I look confused, then our listeners are
Well,
confused.
That's probably
That's
true.
probably true.
That's not incredibly confidence inspiring for our listeners right now, Jeffrey.
He's on
But
the
that
front
is
end
why
now.
you have
Should be-
folks. Recently we had a customer come in and said to Jeff, like, "Are you the only person who answers the phone?" And I was like, "We're doing something right." I have made the right move.
Yes.
Which
I
has
was cracking up
inadvertently-
because after that happened, you so quickly ran out. It was like, I'll do your walk around with you on the vehicle and go over everything. And I said to Scott Saturday, I said, Neil was so excited to get involved once he realized that customer had no interaction with anyone in the shop besides me.
Well, and I got to be honest, this is one of those things. So our American Hustle this morning, folks, also important to note, you're going to want to stay in there because we're going to be talking about why Jeep trucks suck.
Yes.
You're going to want to stay for the whole podcast, and we have to get through our interactions that I think people also really like to hear about.
Yeah.
But you're going to want to stick around for that.
I got a donut story for you guys you're going to love.
So, what on the American Hustle this morning, as we were doing our recording of that, we were talking about being humble and being modest in our approach. I'll be honest with you. One of the reasons why I had I felt really good to get involved. I love that she didn't know who I was, or that the couple. She didn't know who I was. She didn't care.
She had no idea that you were the owner.
I was going out. As far as I was concerned, I was going out to take the trash out or sweep the floors or whatever. And I was like, hey, I'm just getting involved and make sure that she has a good, thorough walk around, the stuff that made us successful in the very beginning. And I'm just gonna do my position as just a overly pedantic technician. You know what I mean? And I was like, I loved it. I'll let Jeffrey.
I'll be
get
honest.
all the
I don't
credit.
know if she ever figured out that you were the owner.
No, I don't think she did. I don't think she knows or that she was none the wiser.
Right.
I think one of the coolest parts about the other podcast, which you definitely should go and listen to and make sure you're catching all the updates. And since I get to listen to them the first kind of
Yes.
thing, it was the appropriate application of confidence.
Yes. Oh, interesting.
When to have confidence, when to be sure in your confidence, or when to not have confidence.
Interesting.
That's my
Look at
take.
you.
I
That was
like
a good
that.
takeaway.
That is.
That was
So for those that are listening, the American Hustle podcast that Neil referenced and Scott's saying a new topic for that we're definitely going to have to dive into. That episode for Humble Pie actually will release on Friday on all the major streaming platforms. So definitely check it
might
out.
want to check that out. But yeah, that was the nature of why I so enthusiastically got involved, because it was apparent to me at that moment she didn't know or care who the heck I was.
Yep.
And I was jumping in to make sure that she had an A+ experience from start
and
to
honestly,
finish.
that goes to show when you're having a good system and all the employees are working properly in their cogs, because I've worked at places before where only one person was allowed to succeed. Everybody else was something you stood on. Where here, the fact she didn't know who you were just meant that we were all operating appropriately in the right situation.
To me, I couldn't be prouder. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I've for years I've really enjoyed those blips of experience, and I think that we're further and further. The more
Yes.
you know about the business, and if you certainly are on YouTube, then you see me more often. But if you come through the brick and mortar, I mean, that's the whole piece with Chip and me, rappelling from the ceiling. I love our customer base. They've supported us in becoming the business and the reach that we have.
Yep.
But the
for
reality,
Chip, you were just a voice on the phone for a year or more.
Yeah, he didn't know you existed.
right? And
For all he knew,
AI.
for all he
Yeah,
knew,
it
it
was
was AI, or it was one of us using a voice changer. He had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt, and I couldn't make me prouder, because that just is a testament to as we win and lose as a team.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I aspire nothing more. The storyline that I have heard is an old adage. It's just a story, and the concept of basically an individual goes up to a summit racing-esque business, right? And they walk past an individual who's just, pulling the trash out to the dumpster at the moment, and that person kind of smiles and, says a pleasantry, good morning or good afternoon or whatever, and takes the trash out, sweep, pulling the janitorial bucket along with them. And they go inside, and the person has a great experience, and they have such a great experience. They go, hey, you know what? I'd
like to talk to the owner.
I'd
tell him
like
how
to
good a
talk
job
the
he did.
owner to tell them
It's the guy taking the garbage out.
it's the guy taking the garbage out.
Yeah.
Nothing would make me happier in life than to be in that position.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's just the authenticity of the
So now I
situation.
know what to put on his locker, janitor.
That's right.
I'm gonna tell you that one of the people that we use for paint now, the first time I met the owner was that situation.
Yes, he
My-
enjoys that as
my
well.
my wife's car was there getting body work, and this guy's out walking the parking lot. He wasn't doing anything. He didn't look like he worked there. He looked like a customer.
Yeah.
Right.
And he saw the Jeep and was asking about the Jeep, so we were talking about that. And he's like, was your Jeep here for service? I said, no, my wife's car. We're just picking it up. Oh, how'd they do for you here? I'm like, they did amazing. It was great. And, everything top to bottom was great. I said, whoever runs this place is doing an amazing job. And he goes, well, that's actually me. I'm Dave. Nice to meet you.
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
huh.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you, Savage, for bringing coffee on set.
Yes.
I love Savages. I really kind of do it intentionally at this point because
Yeah.
I want people
It's
to just get a
so
glimmer. I just want to get a glimmer of Savage.
Yes.
He comes on and then he goes off, right? So our folks listening at home, that's how he works, man. He just kind of comes in like the Phantom. And
We
leaves.
really got to get him on the mic one of these days, just for an episode, even
Oh,
if it's
boy.
only a half episode.
Oh my goodness, that would be something.
So
That
are
would
we
be
going to do updates? And if we are, I think Jeff does his last.
My God, we got to get to it. We got to do a thing. I'll breeze through, folks.
Yep.
I'll let you know that
Well,
per
Jeff
the
has a
usual,
good tie-in to the rest of
to
it.
why Jeep trucks suck.
Yes.
So
All right. All right.
so
I hear you, Scott.
As far as I don't know what the storyline is, so I can't wait to hear.
I'm not sure how it ties in, but
That's
we'll
fine.
see.
It's using a truck.
It is using a truck.
I had a great Simpson weekend, which means that we did 101 things. The big piece that I definitely want to. I started by about 6 a.m. on Saturday in the shop, and I got to work on my wife's mall crawler for a while, and that really set the tone for the weekend, and so that made me very happy. The big piece, I actually found I had a shimmy. I, honest to Pete, had a shimmy that I promise you was one of the most challenging things for me to pinpoint as to what and why it was happening. And I genuinely had this, it came in a pulse of 3 at about 66 miles per hour. So between 66, so you could really feel it come on in the late 50s, and then about 66, it was like wanting to shake your teeth out.
Yep.
And 66 to about 69, you felt like the Jeep was just going to fall apart on the highway, and it would smooth out 72 to 75 miles per hour. And it was still there, but it was smooth enough. I think there's water in one of the tires.
Ah.
So the set of tires that are on her Jeep was a used set that I had purchased from one of our customers.
Yep.
And it had come off the bead.
Yep.
And I recently I worked on it Saturday morning, and I recognized that I think there was
slishy slosh.
Yeah, I think there was water in one of the tires.
Huh.
And so what was happening was somehow it was a perfect harmonic oscillation.
Mm-hmm.
It was repetitive. Do you remember she came in, Jeffrey? You actually tried to help her out when we were at Harrisburg at Mecum. She came in and you were testing like bearings and giving a quick shakedown.
Yeah.
That's what the issue was.
Huh.
That this tire either has a bad belt or it has something inside of it that has depreciated the structural integrity of the tire. A pulse of 3. It was a perfect repetitive pattern. It's been going on for about 4 months.
That's technically overbalancing the tire at
Yes.
that point.
Yeah, it was the most fascinating thing for me to accomplish. Saturday was a great fun-filled day with family and activities, but the big one for our listening base is I finally got back into the house build.
I could tell.
And
My batteries removed.
yes. Wow.
I could tell because it's the happiest he's come in on a Monday in a long time.
I felt great. I
Yeah.
felt great. Yeah, absolutely. And it was very much of anything that when we accomplish something good or positive.
And it's always good to have, when you have that short break and then you get back in and you make a big.
It was really
difference.
it was the concept of being rusty was there. You know what I mean? I was like, man, where did I leave this a couple months ago when I was into it? But
yeah.
we did a big project that felt like we accomplished a lot. And so it was, and we did. So thank you for Jason and his continued support and help in that process. And we were able to keep reinforcing the floor and leveling everything
We
out.
gotta make it equal to the walls.
Correct. I mean, if the arc is going to be built, then we're going to build it right.
Well, it won't
Yeah.
float though, as it weighs too much.
That's true, but there's no.
It's definitely not going over.
It's
though.
not blowing over anytime soon.
You
so.
do know that big ships weigh a lot, right?
Well, True.
It's all about.
You know what? And
I
real
mean,
quick,
it is tightly
Joe
made. It
Brilla
could hold water.
commented harmonic oscillation. Joe, 100% I said that for your benefit because you did coin that term. So
Yes.
understand that I appreciate that and I give you credit for it. So there was my my weekend in a nutshell.
So I'll try to do mine quickly as well. I actually, my wife was really excited. We were trying to go to a one-day event I and my kids went to last year. It's actually, for those that like to follow along, it's the trip I blew the rear end out of the Rambler, and I've been nursing it ever since.
Oh, perfect.
About on the way home on Route 11, it was when the oil decided to completely leave the bearings.
Leave the bearings.
And
Yep.
it started grumbling.
Yep.
And now I'm just taking for every mile it's worth. But anyway, they had actually supposed to have it last weekend, and they canceled it, and they made it this weekend. So we're like, okay, got off a little early. We'll cruise down there, getting down there
Where was it?
in Youngstown.
Okay.
I'm going to interrupt real quick back to the house build. Your wife Amy comments to Neil, all the spray foam will help with buoyancy.
That is so true.
Ooh. Well played,
That was
Mrs.
very
Brown.
well played.
So anyway, we we're cruising along, and at some point she is checking the internet on 11 where you can and can't,
Yes.
and he canceled it again,
No.
and they moved it to Sunday. We're like, that's it. We don't care. We're going to do Brown, and we're going to just go
Find
where,
adventure.
where
at this
the
point.
where it makes us. So we went to
It's not really doing Brown. That's
Well,
doing your family because
that's
you've
true.
deviated. You broke a generational
That's true.
cycle. So
My-
it's
my
important
dad-
to know.
My dad had a plan. He had to have everything like triple kit. Everybody got a paper, and anybody disrupted that flow, then the end of the world happened.
the end of the world happened. That's why I think it's really valuable right here and now on this podcast that I recognize the fact that is a break of generational cycles that
Yeah, we've
you
probably
and
gone
your
too
wife.
far because now my kids are like, oh, I need some structure. my parents never know what's going on. Hey, it's 3:00 and we didn't eat lunch.
We should figure that out.
Figure that out. We're just going to eat
Welcome to our
randomly.
world.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, so we accidentally went on a nice little jaunt. We ended up in Columbiana. We ended up in, I think, Canton or Akron. We ended up at Summit Racing.
That was a heck of a jump.
So we traveled all over the place. I went and looked at Gladiators in Columbiana just because we could. There's a restaurant, sandwich shop
Did you
down
go
there.
to the sandwich joint?
You have to.
You have to.
If
Yes.
it's really within 20 miles, you have to. Good as always.
Good. Excellent.
And they have cherry pop, which is one of the few pops I still want
Yes.
and lust after. So that was great. We went to this cool little boutique shop up in
Did you
Canton.
drive past the old 4WD?
I thought about it, but by the time we had done all that, it was kind of like, hey, we need to think about getting home. It was
Oh,
actually on
okay.
our return trip. We went to Antique Mall.
Oh, so you went
we went
backwards.
We
more
went
or less.
backwards.
Okay.
Yep.
So you ended
I
in
purposely
Columbiana-ish.
didn't want people to be open. I wanted to go and peruse
You wanted to
without
peruse.
salesmen breathing down my neck.
I see. Okay.
So, and we wanted to do Sandwich Factory for dinner.
Right. And for those of you who are listening the first time and you might have just joined the Jeep community in the last 5 years or so, there was a impactful family-owned business in Columbiana, Ohio. It was one of the foundational businesses of the four-wheel drive and off-road industry starting in the late 70s. A gentleman named Tom Kennedy and created fourwheeldrivehardware.com, which went on to become a mail order sensation.
Mm-hmm.
And when catalogs became a big thing in the 80s and 90s, so they did fiberglass bodies, and then they became mail order sensation. And in the 90s, they just killed it. They had built themselves up to such a national prowess that after Tom passed away, they were purchased by a large conglomerate, which has fortunately failed into the ashes of their own implosion. So they can
they lost
pound
the
salt
spark
because of
that had
they did.
that little mom and pop. I actually bring it up often with customers. When you went there when we were young, the person had a cool Jeep out in the parking lot. He had been to all the places. He knew what you needed to do to make your Jeep work.
Yes.
And that's some of the stuff we try to embody ourselves.
Yes.
That we will give you firsthand information and use and tell you why this part sucks or works.
Or why it's so good.
Yep.
And so ultimately, you and I, we kind of pay homage to the authenticity of 4WD hardware.
The original.
The original. and shortly after the buyout, they had some contentious.
Yeah.
They still kind of operated as their own entity for
They
a
kind
few
of let
years.
them kind of keep going as status quo, but then they just kept removing.
They kept
a layer.
removing layers
Yeah.
of their quality that they brought to the four-wheel drive
Yeah,
industry.
it just happened slowly, sadly. But
It
then,
did. Yep.
anyway, then Sunday I went ahead and repaired Amy's Snowflake, put a power steering pump on it. I've never had a power steering pump lock up.
Huh.
It almost completely locked up. It didn't smoke the belt off, but I literally could not turn it.
Without hearing, like you didn't hear.
So it's amazing what you don't hear with a no top, and then when you put the hard top on, it really holds in sound.
Huh.
So
Go figure.
yeah, it was very bad. So
Oh, okay.
that's repaired and back in the driving status, so we can get through the parade season with it.
Okay.
And then we cleaned a lot, and then I got the best part. I got to work on my carburetors with our friend Bob, and got to start the osmosis of learning carburetors.
Yeah, he's so
So-
gifted at that.
That was a great weekend. I like your size. Being able to go and spend that time with Bob and talk about life and that kind of stuff was a big breath of fresh air for me. So,
Outstanding.
Well, since you mentioned parade season, just a quick note to our listeners: Conneaut Parade has been announced for the Christmas parade and is up on our website calendar already. So if you want to check out the details for that, that's where you can go.
Can you outdo Jeff in decorating your Jeep?
Jeff will be in a costume again this year, folks. And
There's debate on which costume.
There's no debate in my mind.
There's debate.
There's
Will,
no debate.
will the Grinch return, or will the Grinch be wearing a pink bunny suit?
So the theme this year is A Christmas Story from that famous Cleveland movie, Cleveland-inspired movie. And so, just a fan favorite, a cult classic.
Are you
Christmas
going to have
movie.
a lamp in the back of the truck?
That's somebody actually asked me that already. If Jeffrey was going to have like a 6-foot leg lamp in the back of his truck.
I should.
Um,
So, anyways,
The wheels are turning.
I just have to. I'm going to share the story from this weekend because it's just too funny not
I
to.
think it's going to be lost on our listeners, but you can go ahead and do it. You can go ahead.
Neil messaged me over the weekend while Greg and I were at the shop and said, "Hey, the parade's just been announced. The theme is A Christmas Story. It's my favorite movie. Have you seen it?"
That's what I said to Jeffrey because I innocently am excited
And Neil
I
always
wanted
expects
to
the
share.
best in people.
I did. I wanted to share.
But then the
positive-
bullies smell it.
the bullies smelled it.
Greg and I just looked at each other and were like, "Did he really just ask if we're familiar with that movie?" Like, what? So of course.
So instead of being kind and being like, of course we've heard the Christmas
It's
story.
a great movie.
It's a
Let's
great
commiserate
movie.
over 24 hours of Christmas Story on TBS when we were younger
No,
or whatever.
let's
no,
go for
I
the jugular.
smell blood, so I'm going for the jugular.
And it just became a series of, "No, I've never heard of it. Is it good? Oh, is it kind of like Die Hard? No, is it like Gremlins?"
And I'm
no.
responding back to him at this point. I'm trying to be like, coach him through and be like, oh, this is the movie that you should familiarize
Yes.
yourself with.
And then he finally just goes, "I hate you."
Yes, that's what I
I don't
Because
even
you
know
asked,
what
because the
point
last one was, I thought you asked me if it was the one with the snow miser or whatever.
Yeah, it was. I asked if
Yeah.
it was with Snow Miser.
It was the one with the snow miser, and that's when it became just abundantly apparent that you were trolling the crap out of me, and I was just like, I hate you. Like, I just wanted to be nice and like share a moment with you and put
Yeah.
you in a pink bunny costume, but now you're definitely in the pink bunny costume.
Kristen's saying, "Where's Jack Skellington just going to take
No.
over our Jeep?"
No, she can be Jack Skellington. You're being the pink bunny costume, 100%.
I think it's going to be the Grinch in the pink bunny costume. Just
Oh
because.
my
boy.
goodness.
So, anyways, my weekend was kind of eventful because we went to pick up a piano for the Heberly Heartstring.
Oh, okay.
So we went and saw Daddy Jeep.
I was living vicariously through him this weekend as well.
Yeah, he's got some great things going on. We actually went down, checked out his shop. He showed us a couple of his builds that he's got in progress. He was literally working on a Mini that was sitting up on his lift. So I said, "Those are fun."
Okay.
He goes,
Like
"That
a
one's
Mini Cooper?
yeah, Mini
Oh,
Cooper."
okay.
That one actually, he said, was stick and turbo, and I went,
Nice.
"That actually does sound like a fun one."
Yeah, totally.
Um,
My mom has a turbo auto, just so people listening, like, just,
Yeah.
yeah.
The
you know,
random
they're cool.
that is
The random that is Simpsons. Yeah,
Yes.
my mom's sports car is a turbo auto Mini, but whatever. So they are cool.
So, anyways, we literally drove all the way there. It was a 2.5 hour drive. We took the Jeep, obviously, so we could haul piano back. Kristen and the kids.
Doing truck things.
Yeah. And it was, traveling through Pennsylvania this time of year.
Beautiful.
It was just a beautiful
Just
drive.
beautiful.
I told Kristen you were going to be jealous as she was taking some of the pictures because the colors were just, it was the
Spectacular, I'm sure.
perfect time of year to go.
On
Yeah.
our
That-
trip, it was gorgeous as well.
Yeah.
It was like the best part.
Yeah. So it was just a nice, relaxing trip. We got out there. The piano needed to be unburied quickly, and then
All pianos should.
Rob,
They're good shelves.
Rob, I think was slightly disappointed that we didn't bring actual help because
Oh.
I couldn't really lift the piano
Oh
properly
my
Oh,
God.
God.
with the neck surgery. So like I helped lift it, but
Oh.
it had some weight to it.
Yeah, it's a piano.
It's
Jeffrey.
a piano, Jeffrey.
It's a small one. So, anyways,
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Rob. I'm sorry that you coordinated this with
he literally said, he goes, "Well, I was healthy."
I'm just disappointed you didn't have some, magic crazy lifting
apparatus that
Nah.
would.
That's what I was here for.
It gets better because he goes, "Oh, I thought you were going to bring Davey to help." And I said, "Well, that was originally talked about." And he goes, "Oh, Davey woke up late again, didn't he?" I'm like, something like that. So,
And Rob would know that because he was at Trail Fest,
Right.
which went well, and you should check that
yeah,
out.
he was
on-
at Trail Fest talking to me before Davey showed up.
Yes,
So,
well, Davey was sleeping in. Sleeping. Bay caught me slipping. Savage. I'm yelling across the studio. That's all right.
he side-eyed you.
Right?
Um,
Anyway, so what happens? How does this get in there? What do Jeep trucks do?
So it actually it fit rather nicely. We put it lengthwise with the bed of the truck right in the center, put a couple of cross straps over it, and believe it or not, it fit under the truck topper,
Oh,
which hint hint is going to be product spotlight at the end, so tune in for that. We'll
that's
talk
not
about
a
it.
hint. That's just I'm
That's-
just telling you
that's
what the
just a
product
spoiler
spotlight is.
alert.
That's-
I didn't
spoiler
I
alert.
didn't say what the truck topper was.
What do you mean?
He literally just said it's
you
a
just
truck
said
topper.
It's a truck topper.
Yeah, there's different kinds.
Okay.
Okay,
that's
Jeffrey.
fine. All right. All right. That's
I don't
fine.
see the problem. There's
Fair. Whatever.
Uh,
Whatever. We're just that's whatever. MoveOn.com.
yeah.
So, anyways, that was it. Hauled nicely. My brother met us back at the house, and
You watched him unload it.
no, I helped. I took half the
No,
piano.
listen to you. You literally made a post, Scott, online about how your wife had to move the metal table around your shop.
No, she takes over and moves the metal table. And at this point, I'm just like, good job, honey. I mean,
Anyways, you still don't have room to talk. So, anyways,
That's what I'm saying.
I helped lift the piano. We pulled up next to the porch, and I was this close to taking the railing off and just
Shoving it
straight
in.
off.
Yeah, like a
But
dock.
The only problem was that I realized that I had attached that railing to the house physically as well, and I went, nope,
Yep.
not messing with that. We're
Yep,
just gonna leave
alone.
it. So we carried it up the steps and into the house, and
Mhm.
I spent the evening deep cleaning it with Murphy's oil soap, getting all the wood cleaned up, and peroxiding the keys to brighten those back up some. And
Sure.
it's a very nice looking piano at this point.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Rob, for that contribution to your household.
Absolutely, and thank you, Rob. And he does say this isn't the first time these things happened. My kids usually get me into these things.
No, as
And
long as you have a good attitude about it.
He was sharing some stories and how one of their buildings has a grand piano in it currently, and he said he's not moving that until his son has a house.
Yeah, right.
And I said, I don't blame you,
Nope,
Yeah.
nope, for sure.
because this piano was light in comparison.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure it was. Well, I'm glad to see your truck was doing work and was uneventful in the process.
Always.
But as promised,
yes.
today is about why Jeep trucks suck.
Yes. And it was actually on that tirade we had last week while I was, venting about my Gladiator experience going, through this little journey of trying to find a replacement for Oscar and how silly some things are on these trucks.
I
Yes.
think my favorite that you've learned is how different and how stupid the tow ratings are.
Yes.
So before we get too overtly negative in the process, folks, understand that we actually really like Jeep trucks.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're going to be unpacking that process. But basically, the idea or conversation is going to predate the Gladiator series that we
We're gonna
know
go
now,
right
right?
to the back.
That was released in
Way back.
2020. Because quite frankly, I have waited arguably my entire life for the
Yes.
Gladiator as it currently is.
Young Scott and Neil used to be on the phone dreaming about the day when we could go order our trucks.
The
I'm just-
truck that Jeffrey owns is or was my dream Jeep vehicle.
Yeah.
So
Same here. So
And-
for many years.
yeah, and the thing is, a lot of people are like, oh, they're this, they're that, they look this, they look that.
Yeah.
Anything can be improved upon. You know
Yep.
what I mean? That's the beauty of the Jeep brand
just need the base.
platform. We just need the base. Give me
Yeah.
the base, and I will do
And
what I
honestly,
want
that's
with
why
it.
we get so passionate about the silliness that we will cover.
Correct.
Because you could do better. We see you, Jeep.
We see you.
You could do better.
Mothership, and the idea is that we're going to go back a pretty lengthy amount,
Yeah.
and ultimately Willys as a manufacturer starts making their first truck in 1947,
Mhm.
and my argument is arguably that Jeep as a branded identity has never.
I think the
Really?
trucks are always a second thought.
The trucks are always an afterthought.
Yep.
And that is the frustration. That is where the Jeep trucks suck, is the idea that they are always an afterthought. They are
Yep.
not given the same care and engineering that our Wrangler platforms are.
They're always based off another model that has to share at least half, if not 60% of their
Of their design
of their
qualities.
stuff.
And that's the problem, right? And the fact that ultimately we think of our iconic big three, but specifically our Fords and our GM platforms,
Yep. And
but
Dodge.
even Dodge
Yep.
in that big three category, now known as Ram, they prioritize truck design, truck
Yes.
creation.
they design a truck and then they make that truck fit the more family friendly design. That's where your Tahoes and your Suburbans and that kind of stuff, and your Excursions, that kind of stuff. It's not like they designed the Excursion and then went, we could make a Super Duty.
We can make a truck out of this.
Yeah, no, they made the Super Duty. They made that really good and made it fit its market. And then they were like, hey, if we put a roof
Full
over this,
body on this.
then the
You
guy
can
that
haul
has,
your whole school. in
yeah,
it.
if the guy has 6 kids and still needs a Super Duty,
Yes.
this will work.
The Duggars can now take their boat to the
Yes,
lake.
yes.
Yes.
That kind of stuff. So where Jeep does it the opposite direction, they design like the Willys wagon, which is a very cool, iconic, greatly loved vehicle. And they're like, no, if we just cut it off right here, kind of inappropriately small,
Yeah.
so big people can't fit in
So
it.
that normal size humans can't fit in the cab of the truck.
Then that'll work.
Yes.
And that's
And
how
that
the
will be
Jeep truck
sufficient.
came around.
Yeah, and you think about that iconic imagery of the original Willys wagon of the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that I love some of the marketing and branding. I can think of that the pictures that they had. They were almost kind of caricatures,
Yeah, oh yeah.
cartoonized, and it was the concept of you had this wagon, and it was going to allow you to take your entire family on an excursion.
Yes.
And they were really encouraging because obviously the Jeep, so the CJ platform at that time was a utilitarian vehicle. It was
Yes.
marketed towards farmers and industrial applications. It was
usually-
meant to be a
And
tractor.
I think this is actually one of those ads. It literally shows like the wagon in the center, and then like on an afterthought, they have the CJ line over here, like plowing a field,
Yes,
and then they have the truck like hauling a bale of hay.
I know the exact ad you're talking about.
But the wagon is the centerpiece.
yes,
That is, it's got the cool.
it's meant to be the
trim.
Wagoneer, the Grand
Yes.
Cherokee,
it,
right?
it is the object of their eye, and the truck's like, oh, if they need to haul something tall and it doesn't fit,
Yeah.
maybe we should just stick a bed on the back of this.
Correct. And ultimately, the payload capacity, the ability for that truck to do work
Yes.
regularly. Because again, you talk about kind of the cramped cabin structure.
Mhm.
You talk about the power plants that were available in that truck at that time was
Four-cylinder or a
a
six-cylinder.
poultry 4-cylinder, which was the same 4-cylinder you were getting in one of the CJs.
which was
arguably.
designed in the 20s.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then you did eventually get a straight 6 in those trucks, and you
Yep.
could, and that was a better torque and power band.
But it only happened because the wagon got it.
Correct. Correct. Again, it was this afterthought, right?
Yeah.
And so I love the aesthetics of
Oh,
that
yeah.
early.
I
that
know
early
it's the
model.
dream of yours and your dad's to get one, but you guys don't fit.
That is the big challenge, and we have a
Yeah.
couple customers, and I have comfortably squeezed myself into it, like
Yeah.
like liquid into a tiny little
You're
jar.
not going like maybe from here to the mall.
Yeah.
You could probably do it, but you're going to have a leg cramp on the way back. And you have to take a break so you can stretch it out.
Yeah, and the idea of like say your kind of iconic 68 C10,
Yeah.
I have had the opportunity, thanks to you, to drive that truck on a number of occasions,
Yep.
and the thing just rides like a Cadillac as far as a truck is concerned.
Right.
Right?
Because
You
they
can-
designed it as a truck first.
Correct. And that and it would be important to note again, the wagon and the truck body are arguably the same chassis,
Yes.
darn near.
Almost
And-
identical.
And obviously, you would have had a much larger cabin structure with the wagon itself.
Which I will say, just from my exposure to the early Ford, that is how Ford did it as well. But in the 30s, we're 20 years into it almost at that point because we're in the late 40s, and Jeep's like, "Hey, I had an idea. Let's copy, a 34 Ford
Yes.
design and do it that way."
Yes.
I don't have any idea. And then we morph into the Kaiser era,
The Kaiser era,
which
is also called a Gladiator.
which is called a Gladiator. And again, we design the Wagoneer as the first basis. And then they're like, hey, we could do the same thing we did before
We could do a truck
and
I
just
guess.
whack it off
I
behind
don't
the
know.
front
Do
doors.
we really want to do a truck?
And that truck's actually pretty good. I will give you that. And they decided, like, hey, let's give it a 1/2 ton, a 3/4 ton, and a 1 ton. But they did it in the most rando way because you could have, I still see confusion on the interwebs on this.
Constantly.
Because you had a J100, 200, 300, I think. And this is the problem. I don't even know because I can't.
They
it's
actually
so random.
somewhere out there's a truck of this era expert, and they're gonna roast us.
That's
but
fine.
I'm with you because the same era in there, you get a J. See, the 1000 doesn't really exist. You get
No.
a J 2000
2,000,
and a 3000
3,000, and a 4,000.
and a 4000.
Yes. And disclaimer, that's not the weight capacity of the truck.
That has nothing to do with weight capacity.
Nothing.
At that
It's
po-
the
at that moment.
wheelbase of the
Yeah.
truck. The 2000 is like a middle box. It's not a long bed. It's not a short bed. It's like a middle box. The 3000 is like our long box
Yes.
ish, and then the 4000 is just extremely long for I don't know why.
Well, and the funny thing is, actually, in my own experience with the J4000s, that almost actually is a 1-ton truck. They were like service
it's like
utility.
almost like cab chassis.
It's a cab chassis.
but it doesn't actually mean it was a 1 ton.
Correct. That did not
'Cause
actually
you-
designate one or the other. So, like,
You
now
could
we have
get so for example, you get a 2000 and a 1/2 ton, a 3/4 ton,
Yes.
and a 1 ton.
Yes.
Because then you could then option it how you wanted to, and motor wise again. And once you got use of that idea from 63 to 70 ish, then they decide because AMC gets involved.
Well, wait a second. I'm going to make one quick statement on those Gladiators. I think where prior to AMC getting involved, those Gladiators kind of set the stage. Aesthetically, they were competitive as far as iconic imagery with the other truck market.
I
The
agree.
downside was the confusing nature of how they differentiated the packages
Yep.
and the garbage power plants.
Yes. As cool as an overhead cam 6-cylinder is, it wasn't a good motor.
It wasn't a good motor. So you have GM and Ford out there competing with
They're tried and
priority
true.
of engine platforms.
Yeah, at that point, I mean, you could get a Chevy with I think a 230 inline 6,
Yeah.
or your small block Chevy, which has been proven from 55.
Right. At that point in time, they're working V8s.
Yeah.
And
Ford
Kaiser.
kind of did their own random thing, and you could love or hate one Ford motor over another, but there's lots of different options where we had
Basically
three-ish.
2 or 3. And they were all underpowered.
And then they really confused you more, whereas because you could go up to a J truck and it could have a 350 Buick in it, and then that one over there, 1 year different, could have a 327 AMC,
yes.
and nothing crosses.
Nothing crosses.
So the distributor for that truck doesn't fit that truck.
Yep.
So now it's different bell housings. All this stuff is all confusing.
Correct.
And I think AMC was like, no, we bought a hot ball of garbage and we got to make this sense of this. But it had gone on so long at that time. I'm sure someone was like, "This is the way it should be. This makes sense, and I like this."
And again, it's an afterthought. It's just not. It's not a priority.
Yeah.
Right. AMC does an acquisition, and I'd love to actually see the history. You and I would
Oh, yeah,
really
geek out on
enjoy
that.
the somewhere this is documented. And I don't
Yeah.
know where, but somewhere it is. For them to say what was their priority set in the portfolio of vehicles
Well,
that
we,
they bought.
We know what the priority set was the CJ.
Yes. Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wrangler for life.
Yeah, and that's also again why we see from 63 to 91, for all intents and purposes, a Wagoneer did not change that much. We know they changed a lot, but to look at the
For the general
design,
consumer.
it looks the same. They just put some grills on and changed some interior around. The dash, honestly, is the same underneath.
Yep.
It's just different on top. Until you get to the late models where they really plasticed it up.
Correct.
But all that kind of stuff is really similar. And the trucks, while they made them, was again just that same Kaiser design with some small changes over time. And they got a huge long life out of that, which some people liked and some people didn't. But sadly, that doesn't keep you market
It
relevant.
doesn't make you relevant.
Because
I'm going to go to the comments because Joe's in the comments yelling, Neil Simpson is a shapeshifter.
he's still a large guy, no matter what
was gonna
shape he's
say.
in.
What?
Wow, Scott.
What?
Not
Why?
that type. He's just tall,
I'm
wide
just
shoulders.
wondering why Joe is yelling.
That's what I'm wondering.
why
I'm sitting here
yelling,
staring at
"I'm
this
a
going,
shapeshifter."
what did I miss?
I don't know. I can't wait to hear Joe's
Yeah.
explanation.
I'm sure he
and
has
and our
one.
listeners will be on the edge of their seat, also trying to
I
understand.
mean, he is blatantly yelling in all capital letters. Neil Simpson is a shapeshifter.
As Joe should.
That's right. I wouldn't expect anything less, honestly.
So I'm gonna bring us back to center, and AMC buys them out in 71,
Yes.
and they decide we're gonna have a J10, a J20, and a J30, which makes perfect sense. It's just for we just did 20 years of the other way.
Yes.
So now people are like, I think I got it. Wait a minute, they just changed it on me. What does this mean?
Half ton, 3/4 ton, and arguably
Yes,
1 ton.
and now we're doing the Chevy way or the Ford way, where we're talking about the weight capacity. So we've completely changed what we used to do to now the way it should have been from the start. And now you can get different bed options in that class.
Yes.
So Joe's response was, I watch way too much Star Trek.
If somebody out there has an explanation,
I still
for
want to
it,
know.
I am here to understand.
Yeah.
But I will just take it and
Yeah.
know that I love Joe and Linda unconditionally
Yeah.
so much. So I'm here for the entertainment value of it. They go to the half ton, 3/4 ton, and 1 ton model, which
Yes.
is now easy for the rest of the world to understand because that's what everybody else
That's
is
for
doing.
now your demographic that has been buying trucks from Jeep just because they want to,
Correct.
and now alienated because now they doesn't match. I can
Right,
only
'cause now-
imagine that transition year when somebody was like, oh, I want to go in and buy another J2000. Well, we don't have that now.
We don't have that.
We have a J20. Well, I don't need a 3/4 ton truck.
Right.
I know somewhere in America that happened.
Yes.
So-
there was something, and lengthwise and
Oh,
short
yes.
boxes and
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
and I know they standardizes the boxes. You didn't have as many options as the earlier one. So I'm sure someone like my dad was upset and miffed.
Right, because he was
that
missing
happened.
2 inches of
2
his
inches
box,
of bed.
or his bed was 4 inches longer,
Yes.
and he doesn't want
And
that.
he didn't need that extra
didn't
4
need that
inches.
4 inches.
Yes.
Didn't want to pay for that.
100%. And then
Rob's in here for the save. It was from when Neil said he squeezed into a customer's Willys truck. Now I understand.
There we go. There we go. I
anyway,
appreciate that.
so then we have yet another takeover, which is probably why the poor things are just not doing well, because we just keep constantly getting taken over.
Well, and let's also not forget that AMC actually makes like nothing of theirs. They make cars,
Yes,
which also are not that popular at the time.
that hurts me a little, but that's true.
and so they now own this whole portfolio of rugged 4-wheel drive vehicles.
And they're like, how can we make it as cheaply to produce as possible?
Correct.
So we're going to just keep making the same stampings.
We're just going to keep buying from GM and Ford
Yeah.
and anybody else who actually makes things uniquely theirs.
Yes,
And we're going to keep trying to shove them in the shape of a vehicle.
yes.
Okay.
So that continued on, and then Chrysler buys them out in '87,
Yes.
and the cheap truck dies because suddenly it was threatening Dodge
It
Ram
was
trucks.
threatening Dodge.
Yes.
Even though it wasn't even on the radar, folks,
No.
because it's just
Nobody
once
was
again,
driving a Dodge truck remotely even gave a fig about a Jeep truck at that moment.
so true. That's
They were
so
going to come back to Chrysler and buy another Dodge truck, but then the Jeep truck guy was alienated, and he had to go back and go, well, am I a Ford, a Chevy, a GMC, or a Dodge guy?
But wait, Jeep is here.
But then at the last minute, they decide, like, our forefathers that we bought from 3 times decided that all we had to do was cut off behind the front
Cut off
doors,
behind the front doors.
make an inappropriately small cab.
Small cabin out of the garbage unibody or
and somebody
or,
like Scott was going, and we can make a unibody truck, and that'll make everybody upset.
yes, but we're gonna give them a solid front axle.
Yes. And we're going to flick our nose at those S10s and those Rangers with those weird IFS things going
Yes.
on.
Yes.
And to make it better, we're going to steal the V6 out of the Blazer because
Well, because we're not actually
we're
building.
not actually building them ourselves.
We're not building anything ourselves, so we're going to use a V6 out of GM's
And I
platform.
guess we should actually say, just because of the one person that will roast us, that actually happened under AMC. It was before the takeover. Chrysler was just like, well, I guess,
Yeah.
because
Whatever.
Yeah,
I don't,
we'll
meh.
let we'll
I
let you
think
guys have
Chrysler was
the
the
little
definition
truck.
of meh
Yeah.
at that point.
And it didn't last all that long as the Chrysler takeover.
No, they end up going to the Renix Ignition.
Yep.
It was straight 640.
Yep.
Prior to the 40 that we
And
all
we're
know
talking
and
about
love.
the Comanche.
We are talking about the Comanche for all of those
And-
who are following along, and Justin with his diesel.
Yep.
He should have
They did have a diesel for 2 seconds.
the Renault
Yes.
diesel.
I feel bad for all you looking for timing belts out in the world.
Yes. And so we have the launch of the Comanche, which
Yes.
again is just a Cherokee
Yep.
with 2 bed options,
Yes,
right?
short
One
and
is
long.
short and long.
And then to make it more confusing, we had regular towing and the heavy duty towing,
yeah.
which that escapes me for a minute. What was the name of that?
So there was a metric ton package.
Metric ton package.
Yes, don't
which
worry.
is-
I'm here to
I
explain
know
all
you,
things
I
Comanche
knew you were
to
there.
you.
You were done. You get there for me.
Metric ton package.
And if you're ever in a Cherokee/Comanche group, you're going to hear that dropped at least 4 times.
Oh
in
yeah,
that
well,
grouping.
because you got
Because you got to flex on your fellow Comanche
you've
owners.
got- you've
Well,
got-
I have the metric ton package.
you've got coolioons the size of Texas if
Yes.
you've got the
Yeah,
original
if you're
metric ton
Jeffrey,
package.
you have the metric ton.
Oh,
package.
Jeffrey has the metric ton package.
I didn't even get
He's got a
Max
small
Tow.
army of children in a farm. He's definitely got the metric ton package.
But then
I didn't
this is-
even go Max Tow on the Gladiator. I'm not in that category.
We'll get to that because I have a theory on that. But anyway, so then we feel like we can really talk on this because we've both owned Comanches. We've used them for everything they're worth. I did have a J2000 back in the day. It confused the living crap out of me because I owned a GMC or a Chevy at the same time. I'm like, what? But
Why
anyway,
is this so difficult?
why is this
Why
so
did we make
difficult?
owning a Jeep truck so hard?
Any
Paul-
which way.
Paul just chimed in, hello from your parking lot.
Hey, Paul.
We'll
what's
be with
going
you
on?
shortly.
Yeah.
But anyway, they didn't do the Comanche well either because most Comanches we find, because we're purveyor of everything junk at this point,
Yes,
are 4-cylinder, long bed, 2-wheel drives,
which I love.
which he loves because he likes his long bed.
But-
what do you buy a Jeep for?
But that's a garbage truck.
you buy it because it's 4-wheel drive.
Yes.
You beat that into your head, and then you're gonna be like, "Oh, but here's the scraps, the 2-wheel drive."
Here's the
truck.
scraps. Right. Why
Why?
did they do that? Why is it not all 4.0s, 4-wheel drives, 5 speeds? Or the automatics had a power. They had a little shifter,
Yes.
a little button.
Comfort.
It was comfort
and power.
and towing
The
or
very
power or
first thing
something.
you did is you put on power and left it there.
And just hammered.
Yes,
Just hammered it because
All the
obviously now you
Hurst
had all the Hurst purrs
Yes.
released by that Jeep.
100%.
And here's the thing is
And
that
you could get a cool truck. They didn't focus on it because
but they didn't focus on it. What
Yeah.
wasn't a priority,
Yes.
right? Whereas the rest of the nation is eating up trucks, right?
Yeah.
Dodge is
the
playing with
Baja
the
package S10s.
yep.
The
Dodge is playing the Little Red Express, even as
Yeah.
a 2-wheel drive. They were trying to do the Little Red Express.
100%.
They had these cool truck packages.
Well,
The nation was falling in
and
love with
Dakotas
trucks.
were like, we'll shove a V8 in here, unlike
Yes.
everybody else. We'll make ourselves different.
So somehow Jeep, AMC, Chrysler,
It's like they hit their
pre
head.
Stellantis is just like, I'm going to go over here and hide in a closet while the rest of America falls in love with trucks.
Yes.
And that is my biggest frustration is the
and
fact
then they make it weird, not to cut you off. Then they go, well, these aren't selling well. We're going to cut them off, and yet again alienate
that,
another
right,
thing.
by 92,
100%.
we're finally making
We're
a-
making what we
a-
should have made.
a high output engine. The
Yep.
4.0 has got all the Hurst-Purs that you need for a
Yep.
light body or a light duty unibody truck.
It's like I had one glass gasp of air, and then
Yes.
Chrysler's like, nope, not selling,
Yes,
canceled.
squash their thumb on it and squash the Comanche platform. We consistently did this with our truck vehicles.
Yep.
In the history of Jeep and their parent companies is that we start out with a paltry kind of just, I'm going to barely dip my toes into the water.
Yep.
And then as we're just gaining traction, we're like, no, we're really not a truck brand.
Yeah.
Come on. It's
Yeah.
just not that hard.
Back to comments for a quick second. Darla says, "Oh, just invite Paul in for a podcast customer drop-in."
Darla, that's not a bad option. Paul, come on in, man. you folks at home and those of you watching on YouTube, you'll know his Jeep from quite a few of
Yep.
our YouTube videos.
It's very orange.
It's
very-
a beautiful, iconic orange Jeep that it's just one of those things you look at it, and you're like, that's what a CJ7 should look like.
100%.
Paul, you're welcome on the podcast. You stop in. You don't have headphones yet, but we'll
Yeah.
just make it weird with you here.
That's
And
fine.
we'll
Um,
have fun.
And then Joe was saying Linda still drools when she sees a Subaru Brat.
Yep.
Yeah, and those are pretty cool vehicles. Australia has done some wild stuff with prioritizing the utility of a truck.
The El Camino for the rest of us.
Yeah, the Rancheros and the El Caminos,
Yes.
as far as the U.S. market,
Yep.
has still and continues to be really popular overseas.
Yeah, we get confused in America when we see a car truck.
small car truck.
Yeah.
That's because everything in America needs to be Texas or California.
Yes,
right.
100%.
No different, nothing in between.
No.
We're here to talk about and to kind of accentuate Texas or California, and that's how we design our vehicles,
We
one way or
actually
the other.
saw one in Erie, Pennsylvania yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Because Kristen was commenting about it.
Hey, there's Paul. He's coming on set.
there he is.
At least can sit down with us.
So then, just keeping us on track because we have great people like Paul. We got to get onto our day.
There he
with.
is.
Paul.
Folks who are listening at home, Paul is now in studio
In
with
studio.
us.
Davey, you got to
You're
come
gonna
adjust
scoot
your
more
camera.
to your right.
Yeah,
There
we
you
gotta
go.
cuddle.
Get cuddle.
There it is.
Cuddle with the
That's
scientist.
fine.
Hey. Paul is here to make it weird. I love it. I am all
That's
about
why we
it.
all have a disclaimer.
That's right.
That's
Anyway,
great.
so I started on this journey. I saw the Gladiator release and I was excited, like Neil was.
Yes.
And we
Been
were like,
waiting decades for
and
it.
we're like, okay, we're 5 years, we'll be in it.
Yes.
We got some stuff in life we got to get in place. We got a current Jeeps we're in love with. We're not ready to divorce them yet. So I decided I had this goal of 40 and Gladiator, and I'm actually cheating and I'm trying to get it a year in early. We're gonna be 39 this year, but anyway, Neil already is. I'm going to be. But anyway,
Wow. Just put me-
Wow.
Fine. That's fine.
So anyways, Daddy Jeep real quick says hi, Paul. And
Paul's on set. We're good.
Darla was encouraging the fact that now Scott won't be by himself.
That's
so
true.
Oh,
the
that is
cuddling was
kind.
perfect.
enjoy
That's
the
perfect.
the Cherokee Chief seat.
Yes,
together.
the Cherokee Chief seat side of the studio.
So I start down this rabbit hole, Gladiator, and selling the Oscar and trying to find my truck. I am so confused, Stellantis / Mothership. Why is it so complicated with packages with the Gladiator?
Absolutely.
And then you tell everybody, oh, they're not selling,
Yeah,
where
'cause
we want them to be.
Right.
No crap.
Correct. Because what you're doing doesn't make sense.
Doesn't
Continually.
make any sense, and there's no consistency from dealer to dealer. You literally can go up and be like, okay, I see this package and I'm really excited by that package, but I'd also like a spray and bed liner. Guess what you can't have?
No.
That's not available. Or why is just front LEDs on all the lower models and you have to get a Rubicon to get rear LEDs?
Right.
That doesn't make sense.
Right.
And then, Jeffrey and his all Gladiator knowledge this morning, I'd actually was like, oh, okay, I think I know what truck I want. I had almost like full committed in my head.
And then I smacked him
And then
in
he
the face.
smacked me upside the head because every single truck I've looked at, and I'm talking from Columbiana to Pennsylvania to almost Akron, has had the tow package. Not the max tow package. I don't think that exists.
Just an actual tow package. I
Yeah,
know.
just an actual tow package because we're going to make it more confusing than it should be.
right. Versus the non-tow package
Yes.
equipped.
So,
Which
so we have
quarter-ton
3
truck?
It
flavors.
makes significant amount of difference in what you can tow. It's crazy.
So if you get a non-tow package Gladiator, it's 4,000 pounds. If you get a tow package equipped Gladiator, which spoiler alert, that just means it has a 2-inch receiver. The non-tow package just has the wiring kit. Come to find out,
Yep.
Okay.
excuse me, you get 6,500,
6,000.
6,000 pounds. Then if you find the Unicorn Max Tow, which I have not yet to see,
Right.
you get 7,200. 1,200 pounds. What? Why?
From what?
For what? And,
And
what
s-
makes it that much? That much?
I was talking to a guy the other day, and he's like, "Oh, well, it's got the wide axles in it."
Yep.
And to my knowledge,
They're all the wide axle.
they're all wide axles.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
And yet there is this unicorn, idea out there that somehow we have narrow axles and wide axles
Yes.
again. It is like it is the 70s.
Yes.
Why
And-
do we have narrow and wide?
And then to make it worse, we have a really cool diesel option that doesn't exist until I accidentally found one over the weekend in Columbiana.
Nice. You
They're
did
not
fi- you-
advertising it.
No.
It's just in the line of Ragnar or of other Glads, and it's not even optioned up. It's a base sport
Huh.
with a diesel.
That's kind of cool.
And
I
the only
knew
reason
you
you,
would love
it.
the only reason
I
you
love
spotted
it.
it was because of the hood decal.
Yeah, I was like, what's that black thing on the hood? Oh, a 3.0 turbo diesel. It exists. It actually exists.
I know you went looking for a couple. You thought that, you
Yeah.
found them around the country.
I found used ones across the country, but you had to go like to Michigan or to Texas or something like
Here's
that.
one sitting, within a 2-hour radius
Yeah.
and nobody's talking about
Nobody's
it. Nobody's
talking
marketing
about it. And I literally had a conversation with a person that has a diesel Rubicon JT that he has actively a friend looking for a diesel Gladiator and can't find one. There's one in Columbiana, Ohio.
Yeah, but it's a base model. Right? So we're giving a good quality. It's again, we're halfway there to making a cool truck.
Yeah.
Right? It's the Comanche, it's a 5-speed, a 4.0,
Yep.
short box.
Yep.
We're halfway there and we're like, oh, we're gonna give this a diesel, but we're gonna give it crank windows.
So then,
what?
if I haven't got enough black eyes and beat up kidneys yet, then we are promised the 24 and the redesigned dash and a different grill and all these extra improvements.
Right.
You can't buy one right now.
Yeah.
I think you might be able to order
It just
one.
released last week, I think.
Well,
So I went on Jeep's site.
It released the build information, but you can't actually
You
go
can't
in and
actually
build it.
build
Can't
it.
actually build it.
No, it tells you to buy a 23. And so because it's me and I'm interested in something, I joined a bunch of Gladiator groups.
Oh,
And,
this is 6 weeks.
Yeah, 6
All
weeks.
right.
And someone on there actually works at the plant
Okay.
and was like, we were supposed to build the 24s in November, and now we're on strike. So obviously that's not happening.
Yeah.
Maybe by February we might think about it. I hate to tell you, Stellantis/Mothership, that's in 24.
Yeah.
And
You've missed the boat.
If you're GM or anybody else, you started making 24s in June
Yes.
of 23.
Yes. This is just the
And
continued
why aren't they selling?
the continued problem we have. We don't
Yeah.
make it a priority from a brand, from a mothership down directive.
Yeah.
They're not prioritizing one of the most popular love affairs that we as folks in Western culture have with our vehicles. We love the pickup truck bed.
Yep.
We want the 4 doors. They gave us that
Yeah.
after decades with the Wrangler platform, finally into the truck market. But we're just not quite there yet.
Yep.
And I am concerned. This is where you're hearing it. This is the rumor mill here that this is a nail in the coffin
Yes.
of our current 2020 Gladiator platform. The design of the Jeep truck that we
I think
know
unless
as that.
everybody and their brother, which I don't think you can afford to, runs out and buys a 24 when they exist. 24
I think that's
will
the
be it.
challenge. Is we're at such an odd market existence where we
Yeah.
have these recessionary trends.
Yep.
I don't believe that people who are, I hate to be a naysayer, things aren't exactly getting better.
No.
We're just kind of treading water right now
Yes.
as a society. That by the time that you're ready to actually build us a Gladiator truck of 24,
We won't be able to afford it.
you're not going to be able to afford it. People are already out buying what they're going to buy.
Yep.
You know,
Because you're pushing
And-
over $60,000 for a fully optioned, done up Mojave. That's basically the top of the spread chain.
oh, 60 to 80 at this point. I've
and
seen
they're
a
not
number of them.
even Overlands aren't even basically a blip on their radar either.
Yes.
Like that is really amazing to me. But that in a nutshell is why Jeep trucks suck.
Yeah,
and
it's-
Joe's asking is something about full float axles. Would that be the
that
difference?
only happened in 24 Wranglers, and I haven't heard any information on the Gladiators at all on that. So if it happened, it would be in the 24s, and those might be a unicorn.
Yeah, and just again, keep it simple, silly as far as a conversation when we were talking about thermostats and brakes and that kind of stuff. We could break down the technology of full float axles. Full float in the back of a Jeep truck would be amazing because it would
Yeah.
actually increase our tow capacity
A lot.
substantially.
Yeah.
With that said, the axle bearing assembly that is on our JL platforms was a unique oversized bearing that actually out of the box is one of the reasons why our tow capacity was significantly bigger in the JL platforms than say the JKs and
So that's for if you look at the ratings, are the same.
interesting.
Yeah, because I looked at JLs
You
because I
just
was
threw a
having such a
curveball at 'em.
problem with trucks. I was like, maybe I'll just look at a JL.
No,
with
you're saying the
Tron.
JL to the JK or to
Yeah.
the I'm talking about JL JTs to the JKs.
So
Are-
JT, yes, JL is low tow capacity.
They're still
just like
saying 2,500 pounds.
25 to 35.
Isn't that interesting? Because ultimately, the bearing assembly in our big axle versus the 35, the small axle.
I mean, I will continue to sell people. My JK can tow what I want to tow. It
Yeah.
legally cannot tow it.
but I'm wondering if you're different.
Physically, it can. Legally,
See, this
it
is one of
cannot.
those confusing moments again, folks, where it's clear as mud.
It's not because
and-
of the design. It's not because of the mechanical parts. It's because of what they, when it was born,
have
said
stamped it
that
with
is
the
a
components
25.
and whatnot.
And I've actually been argued with that. Somebody said my Jeep is a 2,000 pound, not a 25. It's 500 pounds. I don't care.
Right.
It's still that doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
I can tell you what my Jeep can physically tow confidently, and I can tell you what it is stamped from the factory to allow it to tow, and that is where one of the main reasons I am switching to a Gladiator because I want to use my Jeep
In an official capacity.
in official capacity because I am putting my 2 young children and my wife in it, and I'm going to go out of state. I want it to
and we're on a
legally-
podcast where
and
we
we're on a
talk about
podcast where we talk about that.
Yeah, as business entities that we talk
I
about.
am not going to be made a example of I'm going to be legal.
Yeah, and I get that. The full float nature is a super cool tech that will come out, and I think it will benefit all of us when we see it available. Certainly, Joe and Linda, from a highly off-road standpoint, it's something that you'll really benefit from, and all of us as a market from wear and tear on that rear axle.
Yeah.
I'd really think that it would have something direct correlation with tow capacity, but it sounds like that has not caught up with it. So.
Maybe with the 24s it might be different, but the 23s I can say pretty confidently it is not increased on the JL.
Interesting.
I would agree with you from what I researched as well.
So before we transition into our hashtag not sponsored, and Jeffrey's going to take the lead on that and explain the truck topper that he already spoiled. How's Paul doing today?
I'm great.
He's
Thanks
great.
for inviting me in.
Oh,
Oh,
God!
no.
Oh, Scott's
Scott.
disassembling the studio.
So you
my,
could just
my mic.
pull the mic out.
Yeah, I
Are
was
you
just
stressed
turning-
over there, Jeffrey?
Yes.
Oh my God,
I am.
I'm
Neil's stressed.
panicking. Yeah, I was gonna say. I was just.
There you go.
There we go.
See, that mic is designed to be held, so
It's-
it's going to reduce the noise.
Are you sure?
He just
I am
said-
way more sure.
I love that he just spoke into his empty mic holder. Folks who are listening
really
at home
did. It was great.
who can't see that, I want you to know he spoke first into his
I
empty
am
mic
really
holder.
sad that this is not a Bob Barker microphone. That's
We can make that happen. Davey, where's your interview mic?
Oh my goodness! All right, well we're gonna take care of Paul here in a second because we've got lots of other jobs to attend to as well. Quick break, and we'll be back with hashtag not sponsored.
And now it's time for our product spotlight.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Spotlight.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Scott's trying to put his mic back in. Just hold the mic.
Pat multitask.
Destroyeth and he buildeth.
Yes. Ask Amy about multitasking and Scott. Doesn't go well.
No,
Well,
no.
that's
Oh,
fair.
okay.
So
For hashtag
Not
not
that way.
sponsored. Oh my God! I just want to Jeep things and explain truck toppers?
I meant like talking to my wife and loading
Why
the
are we
dishwasher.
still talking? Why? Why are you still
The whole
going?
episode is going to be hashtag move on.
Move on. Move on, Scott. Truck toppers and the Conestoga wagon.
Yes.
That's right. So we were looking for a truck topper for the Gladiator.
Yep.
And, being in the shop, we've seen many come through with the Alu caps and all the different ones.
Yep.
And I specifically asked, hey, what are your thoughts on the best top, the super top truck for trucks 2, whatever it is called? And
For those that don't know, it basically looks like you continued your soft top over top of your truck bed.
yeah.
And it has a bow system and a canvas. So on paper, this should make sense.
This should make
It
sense.
should complement the soft top that's on
It should.
Jeffrey's Jeep
Constantly.
to continue it on.
And understand that this has been a design that has been in the works since the 80s because
Yes.
if you look at the GM, the Bronco and the Blazer had a soft top cab back there. Then the trucks had a soft topper
Yep.
as
And I
well.
want to say you can even get on like your Toyota platforms, that kind of stuff.
back in the day, you totally could.
Yeah.
It should be really nice.
So
Yes.
my favorite part of that conversation was when I asked Neil what his thoughts were before I spent $1,000 on this topper. He goes, "Well, I'm here for you experimenting with your money." And I went, "Well, that's not confidence
That's
inspiring."
exactly-
But in true Jeffrey fashion, he's like, I'm going to continue and do Jeffrey anyway.
I'm going to do Jeffrey anyways because he and his wife had made a decision as a family that this was the top
Yes.
that they were going to invest in.
And
And
part of
how's
that,
that going, Jeffrey?
part of that decision was honestly because of the fact that we do use the truck more than we probably should,
Yeah.
and inappropriately haul tall, oversized objects. So I wanted a top that
That's why you want a Jeep truck.
right. So I wanted
Yep.
a top that I could cover it at times, but not have to lift
Like
a
when
hard
you're
top
hauling
off.
a piano.
Yeah, it's back to the whole soft top versus hard top conversation.
Yep.
I got a soft top on my Jeep because I didn't want to have to lift the hard top off of it.
And I
Yes.
remember growing up, all my dad's friends that would get a hard tonneau cover never hauled anything with their trucks.
No,
They're
it was
constantly towing a trailer because, I'd have to then take the tonneau off, even though it's designed to.
Right.
Then I got to put it somewhere, and
Yep.
or I drive around with it open.
Yeah.
yes.
It-
So
yeah.
we'll talk about what I like about best tops first, and then I'm going to
That's so
bash
kind
them
of you,
because I'm
Jeffrey.
not happy with certain things.
Okay.
So what I like,
which is exactly how I approach the situation.
Yeah,
I get
it's
it.
fine.
so I really do enjoy the fact that it is easy to fold down. The windows come right out of it. You can roll the windows up and just zip up the sides,
like
leave
a
it zipped
soft
across the top.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like a safari
That-
top or
like a
something.
it's very convenient for that. I like that the back window is tinted. The side panels are just solid
Now,
panels.
is it zipper or is it glide?
It is zipper for the windows, so they went backwards in technology as far as
Yes.
I'm concerned.
Totally.
Yes,
But-
100%.
It does work pretty decently. It keeps the water out of objects when it's raining.
Okay.
It does occasionally let a little bit in at the
I mean,
corners,
it's a soft
it's
top.
a soft top.
but it's fine.
It's never
but it's not
perfect.
flooding your truck.
Sure.
And it's super easy to collapse it down if you want it out of the way. It's got an extra flap basically that buttons up out of the way when you're not using it, but when you collapse it, you can take that flap, unbutton it, and zip it to where the back window would go to
It's
contain.
almost like a boot that they one time had for the soft tops. I think it was a separate piece. On,
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's
For
the
the
same.
2 seconds I had a soft
same
top, I kind of
concept.
remember that.
Yes.
So there's a lot of nice features to that. Some of the uses we used it for was we went to the drive-in theater this summer and we left that top up but took out the back panel
Mhm.
and rolled up one of the side ones so we had a little bit of airflow, but it kind of encapsulated us into our own little
Gave you a little bit of a secluded space or a little bit of privacy.
yeah.
of
So
sorts.
it's kind of like our own private theater at that point. You didn't
Yeah.
have the side distractions from other people's
Right.
vehicles.
And the dew and that kind of stuff's not getting on you. 'cause
Correct.
You have a roof over your head.
Yeah. So it was a really nice setup for that. On to things I don't like about it. It's just not tight enough. They didn't usually with a new top, the soft top specifically, you're trying to stretch it out and snap everything in place. This thing went in too easy and I'm like, that's not a good sign.
Sure.
And it does not stay locked in place. So the nice thing is that the corner pieces that they have for it that you have to bolt on have extra flange room that you can widen the bolt and actually lengthen
Sure.
the frame. So I do need to go in and do that yet, but it's not designed to do that. It's just
Yes.
Can
Good.
do
You
that.
can
can.
do that.
Yep.
Yeah. And one of the big things from over here thing is all the tops now is standardized on a glide on the JL and JT.
Yes.
why in the world would you make a topper for a JT with zippers?
Yeah.
We know how
And-
this is going to end.
And I think that is my for those of you who are listening in on the hashtag not sponsored and you're interested in the soft topper, I think having Jeffrey's attitude is the best thing that you can do because quite frankly, from a professional standpoint to a personal standpoint, anytime that I've had to address these soft toppers over the years is that the general feedback is that they are cumbersome, they are universal enough so that they are almost a little bit of that afterthought to Jeffrey's credit to say that went on loose. The idea is that it's not the precision care of design is not taken fully. And so therefore you end up with kind of a mishmash of going, well, why are we going backwards in our design elements? Why is it so loose? Because it's only going to loosen up more over its lifespan.
Yep.
The going up and going down, that's in the eye of the beholder. It's like me. My oldest is 10 years. 10 years old. I've largely had two-door Wranglers. I'm not bothered by that, but there's plenty of people. I mean, Scott himself was like, nope, I'm not having a two-door and kids.
Yep.
So Jeffrey's attitude with, I don't mind putting it up and down. I have to tell you that 60% of our customer base, or 60 to 70% of people who have these tops, find them to be obnoxiously cumbersome in the up and down nature of them.
And they would with a YJ top or TJ top as well.
I think
Correct.
they're extremely easy. So when we were loading that piano, to tilt the piano into the bed, the top was actually in the way. You literally just lift up two hooks, unclip all the side glides,
Yes.
and just push it.
I'm with you.
And it's,
I think
it's
it
out of the
goes
way.
down pretty fast.
And then
I think it's when you're shaking it up is when the cumbersome thing
no,
is.
because once we got the piano in, just pulled it right back up, put those little clips back down, and snapped everything back in.
Excellent.
Now, the part that becomes cumbersome is if you're taking all the panels out and the windows out, all the zippers.
Correct.
Because
Okay.
each panel, there's the two side panels and the back window, they each have 3 zippers.
Oh God.
And trying to line up all 3 zippers.
That's
They
what I'm
did CJ
saying.
things.
That's
they
that's
did.
the cumbersome
And
part.
they did. And the issue is we've literally had a customer return.
Daddy Jeep's even saying it was pretty effortless.
Yeah, but we've actually had customers return. Not that we this was a specific moment. There is a restocking fee, blah 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 blah. But we had a customer return theirs because they were like, nope, not dealing with it. They started to unbox it, and for purposes of assembly, they were like, nope, this is not what I wanted. It's coming back.
I will tell you, as a DIYer, if you open this box not knowing that it's coming in a million pieces, you're not prepared.
yeah.
So that is a take on
It's,
it. Now
it's building a tent when you first build it.
it is, and so
Lots of
there's
screws.
and much of
Well,
things
and
in life.
the tent poles with the little push buttons that you have to lock in place.
Yep.
Oh dear.
My thing in life is there's it's about balance. We talk about that frequently internally, and this idea that one thing that works for Jeffrey, I almost promise does not work for Scott in this situation.
Yeah.
The last piece of this, there are pros and cons. I certainly remember as a young adult, middle school, high school, talking about why would you ever put a topper on a truck bed? Like tonneau covers are stupid, toppers are stupid, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I love the idea at this point.
Yeah.
And an easily installed and removable cap at this point in my life, 20, 30 years removed from that very naive approach.
Well, you're looking at it from the aesthetic point of view. All trucks look better without a cap on them.
Absolutely.
I would agree.
Except
Unless you-
for
Such for the retro caps now, which
So,
I'm still not here for.
I
I'm
love the
sorry.
retro caps so badly. I want a retro cap on a new body vehicle. I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
going to
fine.
tell you over this weekend, I was driving down Route 20, which I just love America and the fact that the most obscure things drive on Route 20 because Route 20 virtually goes from coast to coast, folks, right? And I was driving on Route 20 through Conneaut and a JT, which all I could assume was a JT because it was one of those moments of like, what did I just see?
Yeah.
Not lifted, white, had like the orange kind of old school throwback graphics on it.
Yes, I saw that one too.
Is it a JT?
Yeah,
Is it a JT?
it's a JT.
It has a color matched streamlined topper on it, and it has something that is probably 12 to 14 feet running the length of the Jeep bolted to the top of it.
Oh, yeah. Kristen and I both saw it. We're like, what did we just watch?
It's gorgeous.
She
it
loved
looks like
it.
a
She loved it.
suburban.
I didn't.
It looked like a suburban JT. It was wild.
Yeah.
It looks like a suburban in the sense because that cab structure just
Continued on.
continued on. I actually only caught it, and I actually couldn't tell whether
I mean,
or not
that speaks to
it
your
was one top.
Scrambler long top
Yes.
You know,
Yes, and
nature.
I wondered if they were windsurfers because, folks, if you're listening in and you
Oh,
think
that's a
of
big
Northeastern
thing here.
Ohio, windsurfing is a really big thing. It was a very windy weekend for us in
I could
Northeastern
see
Ohio.
that being
The water is still just a little tidbit warm before it starts to cool down.
Yep.
And I almost wondered if it was some type of windsurfer because they had a pole structure that had to have been 12 to 15 feet bolted to the driver's side of the cab and cap. So if you're listening or you know these people, I want to see a picture. I want to know what this truck is because it's not lifted. It's just
It's a tool.
aesthetically, it's a tool.
yeah.
And it's beautiful. And I thought it was really cool. I just caught it out of the corner of my eye and then in my rearview mirror. I want to know more about what that is. And obviously, that's a situation where the cap and topper works for them. Your situation, it's working for you, and that's good. But before you endeavor into that best top, soft top, truck topper, definitely explore whether or not you like putting up and down soft tops on a regular basis. Scott doesn't. Scott's a hard top guy.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah,
So
he'll have a tonneau cover on his.
Know that about yourself.
Yes.
All right, folks. Paul, what are you doing here? I'm so excited. I'm jazzed up.
We're gonna check out his Jeep before it goes to
We're
sleep.
going to check out his Jeep before it goes into storage. We have a beautiful storage facility here in town. I know somebody else was talking about storing their Jeep. We were recommending this heated indoor Ohio
Yes,
storage.
They pamper them, put a little powder on the tires, and put the little night thing over their headlights. let
I'd
them
like to
sleep.
say that Jeffrey and I are color coordinated for Paul's Jeep to be here.
There it is.
And so we'll go out and take care of Paul. We've got lots of Jeeps to build, lots of stuff to get through. I know we've got things going to paint shop this week, intent, to my knowledge. We've got the M38 build that is taking shape. We've got Brittany the Jeep that looks like a Jeep once again.
Yep.
We've
We've
got a
been
lot
busy.
of customer jobs coming through. So make sure you follow along on the YouTube Life in Low Range, Jeffrey's live video.
Oh, and there's a Patreon video. So if you're not a Patreon, go subscribe. There's a new one being released today.
Yep, we have a whole library of stuff that we really want to cater to our
And
Patreons.
You want to make sure you get on Discord so you get those behind the scene M38 updates every Friday,
Yep,
where I take a brief picture of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it.
the Mad Scientist Metal Shop.
Yep.
And then next week we will be our regularly scheduled podcast, but then the majority of our team is headed to Las Vegas,
Yes.
which is SEMA week next week. So
Scott will be holding down the fort.
Yep, Scott and myself, and then Scott will be finishing out the week
Yep.
for us. Make sure the phones are answered and the lights are on if you have questions.
Yep.
And so very, very lots of moving pieces at SFJ 4x4. So without further ado, Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on.